and welcome back to the Sew Along. This is block 2, which is the one we'll be making today. The supplies you need for this are colour 1, and we need to cut out a 18.5 inch by 6.5 inch rectangle, 4 of those. You also need to cut 12 6.5 inch squares and 48 2.5 inch squares, all from colour 1. Then colour 4, which is this mid-pink colour, you'll need to cut 36 2.5 inch squares, and from colour 5, this sort of hot pink colour, you need to cut 24 2.5 inch squares. You will of course also need your quilter's grid. We're going to be cutting out a 10-inch square of this, at least a 10-inch square, and you'll need to cut 12 of those, so 12 10-inch squares of the quilter's grid. We will be making 4 lots of this block, so we'll start off making this sub block here. We make 3 of those per block, we join them to the 6.5 inch square, we join those together, and then we join it here to this 18.5 inch by 6.5 inch strip at the top. And you'll repeat that process to create 4 of these blocks for your quilt. So let's get started with these little sub blocks. So the first thing we're going to do is make our sub blocks. For that we will need our 10-inch square minimum of the quilter's grid. We're going to make sure it is the interfacing sticky gluey side up, which is a bit rough, before we're ready to go. We're also going to need our 2.5 inch squares, so we've got 4 of our colour 1, 3 of our colour 4 and 2 of our colour 5. And then just like we did with the first block, we are going to arrange them on this grid. So the first one we need is colour 5 in the top corner, and we're going to make sure that the raw edges of this fabric square align up here with this top line of the quilter's grid and this side line here. And we're going to arrange them in a 3 by 3 arrangement, making sure that the raw edges just butt up against each other. Okay, and when you're happy with your arrangement, making sure they're all nicely in line, you can go and press it. Again, I would recommend that you actually arrange this on your ironing board or your pressing mat so that you're not moving it and potentially moving some of the squares around. But you just want to give that a press, and then we can come back and sew it. Once we have sewn those vertical seams, it will look like this from the front, so you've still got the raw edges on the bottom, and it will look like this on the back. And just like we did with the previous block, we are just going to snip away here, just within the seam allowance between those raw edges of the blocks. And again for the other seam. Okay, and now we can sew our horizontal seams, so you can just fold it there where the raw edges of the cut squares meet. And again, just like we did for block 1, we want to make sure we're nesting those seams, so one goes up and one goes down, and then we'll sew that in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we'll move along and do the same for the next seam, nesting those again and sewing down there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When that's done, it will look like this. If you want, you can just give it another little press to help it stay flat, and then you can trim away the excess interfacing that we don't need anymore. And this is what the sub block will look like when it's completed. You'll need to create a total of 12 of these, and that's 3 for each of the block 2 blocks. We are then going to need our colour 1 6.5 inch squares. We are going to arrange our blocks like this and attach the 6.5 inch square to either the top or the bottom so that it creates the bottom half of our block to look like this. We are then going to sew these together, so you can sew the middle one and the end one together, line them up, nest those seams where they join and sew down there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then join the middle part to the other side here, line those up, nest those seams and sew down there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When that's all sewn together, it will look like this. Then we're going to add our colour 1 18.5 inch by 6.5 inch piece to the top of here, and our block will be finished. And this is what the block will look like when it is finished. And you need to create 4 of these blocks for your quilt.